All right, so you're planning that dream trip to Costa Rica. You want to see some incredible wildlife. You've probably hit the travel blogs, the guidebooks, and they're all saying the exact same thing. You have to go in the dry season. But what if I told you that for some of the most jaw-dropping wildlife encounters, that advice is, well, it's just plain wrong. Okay, let's get into it.
So this is the classic breakdown you see pretty much everywhere, right? Dry season is good, sunny, easy to get around, but packed with people. And the rainy season, that's the green season, which is code for wet, a hassle, and something you should probably just avoid. It's all very simple, very neat, but let's be real. Nature doesn't fit into neat little boxes. And this, right here, is the absolute key. It's the one thing you have to understand. The animals, they're on a totally different clock. Their calendar isn't marked by our holidays. It's all about rainfall, when food is available, and when it's time to breed. So the best time to go? It's not about our comfort. It's about their biology. To plan a trip that's truly about the wildlife, we have to just throw away that whole simple wet versus dry idea. Instead, we're going to start thinking in terms of biological peaks. You know, those very specific, very special windows of time when animal activity just explodes for a reason. So let's start with the season everyone tells you to skip, the rainy season. Believe it or not, isn't a problem. For a huge chunk of the ecosystem, it's the main event. It's like someone flips a giant on switch for life, especially when you're talking about reptiles and amphibians. And that on switch leads to something incredible called explosive breeding events. Now, this isn't just a few more frogs hopping around. We're talking about thousands, sometimes tens of thousands, of animals that have been hiding for months, suddenly emerging all at once for just a handful of nights to breed. It is an intense, short-lived, and absolutely unforgettable spectacle. But here's a super critical point. Timing is everything. Not all rainy months are created equal. You might think the wettest months, like September or October, would be the best, but that's not necessarily the case. The real magic, that trigger moment, happens with the first big, sustained rains in late May or early June. That's the on switch for species like the famous yellow toad. And what happens next is this amazing chain reaction. It's like dominoes. First, the rains come. That brings out the frogs in huge numbers. And that sudden massive frog buffet, well, that brings out all their predators. Snakes, birds, you've got young boas and fer-de-lance that depend on frogs for food. They all become way more active, way more visible. The entire forest just comes roaring to life. Okay, but what if you're stuck? Your vacation time is fixed and you can only go during the dry season. Are you out of luck for frogs? Not entirely. The pro tip here is to head for the Caribbean slope. Places like Arenal or Tortuguero, they stay much wetter all year long, so you've got a much, much better chance of finding active amphibians there, even when the Pacific side is totally dry. Now let's flip the script and talk about the dry season. It is not just for sunbathers, I promise. For certain kinds of wildlife, the lack of rain actually creates some of the best viewing opportunities you can imagine, precisely because it's so dry. It all really boils down to one thing: visibility. See, in the rainy season, the forest is incredibly beautiful and lush, but all that green acts like a giant curtain hiding the animals. In the dry season, that curtain thins out. And even more importantly, water becomes scarce. Rivers shrink to pools, concentrating animals in very predictable places. It's a perfect case of less is more. And for all you bird watchers out there, the dry season is absolute prime time. Why? Well, it's simple. Nesting birds are predictable birds. They become what we call site faithful, which means they're tied to one spot, their nest or a specific fruiting tree. And that makes finding spectacular species like the resplendent quetzal way, way easier. So let's look at what this means in practice. If you want to see a resplendent quetzal, your best shot is February to April because they're busy nesting. Scarlet macaws are focused on finding those perfect dry tree cavities from January to March. Even toucans are easier to spot because as natural fruit gets harder to find, they're drawn to feeding stations at lodges. And the advantages don't just stop with birds. You've got huge animals like crocodiles all gathered together in shrinking rivers, making them super easy to see. The water in the ocean clears up, so visibility for snorkeling and diving is fantastic. And, the logistics are just simpler. The hiking trails are in better shape and the roads are far more reliable. So we've broken down the secrets of both seasons. Now for the really fun part. How do you actually use all this? The goal here is to stop thinking about the tourist calendar and start lining up your vacation with nature's calendar. Okay, this is probably the slide you're going to want to screenshot. We've mapped out common vacation times to their true wildlife potential. So if you're traveling over Christmas, you're in the early dry season, perfect for seeing macaws and crocodiles. Taking a summer trip? That puts you in June through August, the early rainy season, which is peak time for finding frogs and snakes. This is a totally new way to plan your adventure. All right, let's wrap all this up. If there's one single thing to take away from this deep dive, it's about shifting your entire perspective on how you plan a trip.
The most important point is this: forget wet versus dry. You need to start thinking about the biological triggers. Are the birds building nests? Are the frogs in the middle of a breeding frenzy? Are the cashew trees full of fruit? Those are the questions that lead you to once-in-a-lifetime wildlife sightings. And when you start planning your trip this way, something amazing happens. It stops being just a simple vacation. It becomes a mission. You're no longer just a tourist looking at nature from the outside. You're actually plugging into the ecological rhythm of the place. And trust me, that is an infinitely more rewarding experience. So the real question to leave you with is this: when you stop looking at a calendar that was built for us and you start trying to see the world through an animal's eyes, what incredible story are you going to find waiting for you?